Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
What is that? That sounds like... Do you know that sounds a lot like the theme song from Inspector Gadget? Did you ever watch that as a kid?
Inspector
Gadget.
Which we should just have a game that is how many things does that sound like? Because then what we just said sounded a lot like Andy from The Office. Is like yeah. I don't know anything else that sounds like.
What are you doing today? What are you doing?
I'm just hanging out here looking at my husband from a mile away.
From a mile away over there on the couch with your cucumber that you've been eating into.
I'm a mess over here.
Yeah,
I feel like I have the flu. I started my period.
Oh, starter period.
All my body symptoms have freaked the F up.
Yeah.
Out.
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a love offering to all of our guests that I am here. A couple seconds ago, I was sleeping on the couch in the 5 minutes Justin took to get ready.
It was funny. You're like, yeah, let's go do this podcast. And then you're just like this blob over on the couch.
Yeah, but I'm excited about today's podcast.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited.
Some of you... Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go. I'll be polite.
Oh, I just got back from a little adventure.
No. Some of you don't know this.
Yes, some of you don't know this.
And some of you do. Justin just got back from a little adventure.
Thanks for filling everybody in on that.
Go ahead. You tell him.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we're going to act like no one has heard this. So any of you who do know about this will just pretend like you don't. But
I've got my pretend ears on.
I recently took off. And those are very big. I recently took off on a 10-day journey, and 8 of those days, basically about 8 of those days, was a pretty silent journey.
Yeah.
Where it was just me, myself, and I. There was a little bit of cheating that happened, and I'll explain that later on in it. But it was I went out to Texas in the middle of the desert on an enormous ranch. There was
land as far as you could see.
As far as I could see.
No other like buildings or structures or.
I was miles away from people.
Yeah.
And there was Mr. Hendry's. That's with a D.
Hendry's.
Not Henry, Hendry.
Well, thank God we're going to pronounce it right now.
Clarify, Mr. Hendry's cabin. That old fella's dead. Oh. But he built a cabin that looks
his name right.
Much like a metal shack.
Yep, that's true.
That's
just
what it is.
Metal sides, metal roof.
And no insulation whatsoever, and some wood stoves to keep you warm at night. 2 of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it just so happens that the gentleman who currently owns the cabin was kind enough to install an extra heater in there, which was a little tiny propane one.
Oh,
that didn't solve everything
but did not help, but helped.
But did help. And we're going to talk about my journey of that, because it was a very interesting journey, to say nonetheless. And there was a lot that kind of sparked the whole thing. So I'm going to share a little bit about probably what sparked getting the thing going.
Let's start there.
And we'll start there, and then you guys can be waiting on bated breath to see if I survived.
Did he make it?
Did he make it out?
Did he make it? You'll find out.
Yeah. Okay. So back in December, right before Mexico, or November. Was that when we went to Mexico? Yeah.
Yes.
Right before we went to Mexico, I had a lower back pain that was going on. I literally couldn't go to Mexico because I couldn't stand up because it was seizing up so bad.
Yeah.
And Abby suggested that I reach out to Yolando, our incredible massage therapist. And if you guys are local in Reading and you want to know like her name and her number, I'm not going to give it to you.
No, because we want to be able to see her sometimes.
I want to be able to visit her. Like she already is hard to get a hold of. So last minute, Abby says, you should go the day before we took off. She's like, you should reach out to Yolanda and try and get help from her. And I was like, that's insane. You can never get into her last minute. But I asked because there's no harm in asking, is there?
I like genuinely felt like, I don't know why, but I think she'll get you in today.
Yeah.
I think she'll just make a miracle happen. And she did.
She did. So I ended up in her office and she was like, look, I actually took the whole month off. And I only opened up yesterday for one person because I felt like I was supposed to. And then you texted me and I got a friend in town that I need to be hanging out with. But you've been on my heart for 2 weeks and I've been praying for you.
Oh,
and that's the kind of massage therapist she
lady.
is. She's like close to me. She's like amazing. She's been just like very loving, very kind, and very caring over my life. And so she was like, so yeah, I just had to get you in. So Yolanda lets me get in. And in the process of laying there getting my back worked on, she said, yeah, I don't know if you've ever thought of this, but have you ever thought about going on like a trip without Abby, like a vacation?
Like
but
every day.
Yeah,
I think about that.
I have to get away from you.
It's my happy place. No
I'm
one
on
knows
a
about
trip
my
in my
happy
mind
place
right now. But she was like, but not quite a vacation, but something for your soul. I just kind of keep feeling like that might be for you. And she's kind of one of those people that's a little bit intuitive, and she'll kind of poke around like that at times. And funny enough, I'd been being plagued in my mind for the last couple of months. I kept seeing the picture of me being on this ranch in Texas all alone. And I was like, as a matter of fact, yes, I do think that that's on my plate. So as it would be, I reached out to my friend. Her father owns the ranch, got her on the phone, and it's one of those where it's a hunting ranch, but it's not real hunting. Just let me clarify something here for all of you out there.
I feel like this is a rant.
These are all pets.
These are all pets.
There's just feed out there. And so all these guys that are paying probably very good money to participate in hunts who think that they're hunters suddenly are just killing friggin' pets. Like, this isn't hunting. They should be terrified of me, not walk up to me 5 feet away and look for food in my hand.
Oh, what a little cutesy.
Yeah. So, but anyways, it just so happened that they had a last minute cancellation.
So they had some time.
Yeah, they had some openings there, which they don't have. Those are very expensive hunts that got canceled. So I was like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. Which they, of course, said yes. And then it was just going. It was immediately like, January it is. When do you want to do it? Right there. There it is.
I know it happened so fast.
And yeah, it's kind of what happens when you get that moment of divine inspiration. Everything just sets in motion super quick. And you're like, it shouldn't happen this fast. And why is this happening? It's so cool. And that's one thing I love about my life. When I act on divine inspiration, I get to see really cool, miraculous things suddenly unfold. Yeah. Before me. So that ignited my heart and got me really excited for the beginning of the year. So, as we were kind of approaching it felt like I could feel that anticipation building. Also anxiety.
Of course.
I was like, am I going to lose my mind?
You're about to spend 8 days by yourself in the middle of nowhere. What's funny is it's like a camping trip. Like we could call it a camping trip, so to say, but everyone around me is like, you're so brave. Like, you're so connected into the internet. You're terrified to disconnect from the matrix. That's funny. Listen, being alone with yourself for 8 days, but then also doing it where you have to cook all your meals on a fire and not have heat necessarily, all that kind of stuff. It is brave. Yeah, okay. Some of our high maintenance needs over here. For all the other men that hunt and do all that stuff all year round, they're like, okay, you went on a camping trip. Great. Well, fair. And one that they're looking forward to getting away from their lives. But there was an element of there is no internet. Yeah, but also hunting is when you go hunting, you have a purpose where you're like on the journey. Slay Bambi. Oh God. All the parents who listen to this with their kids are like covering their kids' ears. No.
Oh my God.
That's funny.
One of the things I try to do when I participate in stuff like this is I try to minimize my expectation creation, like of creating expectations of what something's
what it
supposed
has to be, what it should look like.
And
that is freaking rough.
That's the hardest part of something, because you want to be excited, but you don't want to be too excited. And it's not just like I want to protect myself from fear of disappointment.
Sure.
It's just like you can get yourself off track when there's
Absolutely.
an invitation into something, into getting lost in what you think it should be.
Yep.
And then you miss out on what it was actually made for.
100
right?
million gajillion %.
Yeah. So that was one thing that I was trying to keep deliberately doing, but allowing my expectancy of like, oh, but I believe something beautiful is going to come out of this, whether or not I understand it or not. It's going to be good for me.
And also whether or not, like, time will tell.
Time will tell. That's profound. Somebody should write a meme. Abby Stumble, time will tell.
That's funny.
So right before I took off, the week before I took off, I think you were kind of listening to some, randomly music popped up on your Spotify.
Yeah, I found, this song popped on my phone and I had never listened to it. And then I listened to it for the first time and I was like, oh my God, these words are like literally exactly what Justin's doing.
So I'm going to actually read this song.
Read it.
The lyrics to it, because I think it's a really cool part of my story and kind of something that I held on to through kind of the process.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Maybe don't read the words that repeat. Just there's some words that repeat, but you don't have to repeat them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or I can do whatever, because
I'm
running the show over here.
Yeah. I'm really good at helping in this podcast.
All right. The song's called House on a Hill by Amanda Cook. Shout out to Amanda. You know who you are.
You know.
It's quiet in this house upon a hill. You won't mind it. Some things you can't know till you're still. In the silence, where your spinning thoughts slow down. In the stillness, things have a way of working out. Allow me to introduce myself again. I'm the one that knew you before time began. I've been waiting for you to let me be your friend. Everything you ever need is everything I am. Take your chances. There's nothing here to lose. Ask your questions. I promise you the truth. As you're ready, I want to hear your heart. Is it heavy? Where wounds have left a mark? Allow me to introduce myself again. I was with you every place you've ever been. I'm the one that held you when you couldn't stand. If you're wondering who can heal your brokenness, I can. I'll meet you in the house upon the hill. How I want to show you I am real. Allow me to introduce myself again. I'm the love you used to think could not exist. I'm as sure as where you're standing and as free as the wind. You don't have to reach for me, because this is where I am. I am. And isn't that just so profound to like, hey, just want to let you know, big guy in the sky says, I'll be there.
House. Yep.
Come on to that house. I know it's going to be quiet, but there's a promise there for you. I'm going to meet you inside of this process.
Yeah.
And I think for me, one of the things talking about, ramping up to it, expectations, that's one of the things that like I could feel myself wanting to get away with inside of my soul, like spin out on. And it's like, what does that mean? What does it mean that, you're going to connect with me and meet me there? And these are all the things of what I would want that to be. And then I had to, wrangle myself in and be like, hey, it's just going to be what it's going to be. So all that to say, I headed out there.
Yeah. You left.
I left. And it's interesting because the day I got there, the older gentleman, his name's JP. JP's 82. Actually, his birthday was while I was there. That's kind of a cool thing. 82 years old. He's lived a lot of life. Participated in a lot of cool business activity. He has a wealth of information. He's a historian as well as a lawyer, as well as an oil guy.
Yeah.
He has
It's a little bit of everything.
It's amazing to see a guy who actually, in many ways, chose to really participate in life and explore it and dream. And it's really cool because he came from a family that actually had a lot,
Right.
but then gave him nothing.
Yeah.
And so he came from literally nothing and built a pretty cool empire in his journey. And just at the, he's 82 years old, and kind of like people have pulled on him his entire life, and maybe they don't so much anymore at 82. I don't know, but he has so much to give, and he's still giving a lot and doing a lot. But suddenly, in still the busyness that he still participates in his business, there was something about me attending because when I reached out to him and said, hey, I just need to make it official with you. Is it cool that I come hang out there? And him and I go back a little ways, and we've had some good exchanges. He's kind of like been grandfatherly in his expressions towards me. And he said, yeah. And I asked him, could I go to the hunt? And I told this before, but I said, can I stay at your hunting camp? And he's like, sure, maybe if you want, you're sure you can, but I won't go into the full details of it. But he said, I think I got another option for you of what you're looking for. And he said, I think you're looking for Mr. Hendry's cabin. And that's where I didn't know really what that was all going to be and entailed. And that began to unfold into all right, I'm in, JP. I'm in with it. Let's do it. And so when I got there, I realized, because I talked to his wife, Mary John, he had been preparing that place. Like he went up there. It's about an hour drive from the house where he's at to get up into that spot. And he spent an excessive amount of time really wanting to make sure
you were going to survive.
That I was going to survive, and that it worked out for me. No, it really did. And I just want to start this off by saying this, because I thought that one of the most endearing parts of it was watching the childlike wonder rise up inside of him and watching him become very delighted. Like, he does so many big things in his life with his businesses and stuff. But I could see a twinkle in his eye, and there was a delight of engagement inside of this process. And it was really cool because it felt like kind of like the beginning piece of this being a sense of a redemption. There's aspects of my relationship with my grandfather that I always longed to have. Sure. Like, Grandpa really want to be excited about me, engage me, and choose me. And, things were what they were towards the end as we worked some things out. But so it felt, because my grandpa died at like 82 or 84, and here I am with JP, and he's like, I want to give this special thing to you that means something to me, and I want to get you out here to this. And so as we're driving out, I began to ask him about very personal things that I won't repeat, about his own life and things. And I watched as he just had a smile on his face, and he was holding his dog Fella in his lap, and he's dipping Red Man tobacco and spitting it out the car door, and he's just moving along on the gravel road, and he just begins to just smile and answer one question after another, and just be really available to the conversation. And I think that, again, that felt very, very special and magical for me, not just because I was getting an intention like that from someone, but because I could see the delight also in their heart getting to participate in that way. And were you going to ask something?
Well, then I was going to say, and then you got there.
Yeah. So then we got there, and what was really interesting is him and his wife, Mary John, and one of the people that work with them, Mary John was driving, and the other guy were driving my truck out for me as I was hanging out with JP in his vehicle. And they get in, and it was like watching two parents / grandparents like try and set me up at college, like when they're like, here's all your stuff. And at first he's like, are you going to be okay with this? Like, he's like bracing it. I was like, this is the best thing ever. I'm so excited. And he got excited about showing me the outdoor
toilet.
No, cooking area. He's like, there's plenty of wood. You'll be able to cook all your food right there. And it was delightful because they felt like parents. Yeah. It was really cool. So they end up dropping me off. They leave. And all of a sudden I find myself probably probably 15, 20 minutes into the whole process, just collapsing on the floor and just guttural scream crying.
That's funny.
Yeah. And I didn't know why. Like, I didn't have a direct thought in my head. I was
there
like,
was no conscious pain happening.
you know how when your cerebral senses have like clarity and thought, well, your body's doing something otherly.
Otherly.
I was like, that's very interesting. Look at that. I am like having a meltdown, just like guttural crying.
You're like narrating it as it's happening. Like,
I totally
was.
was.
So weird. That's funny.
But I could feel the intensity of the silence hit. And the exposure. Felt like a deep exposure happened.
What do you mean?
Well, just like a spotlight. Like, not to sound too foofy, but a spotlight hit all of my soul.
Not to sound too foofy, but to sound foofy. A spotlight hit all of my soul, and I guttural cried.
I don't know. It was just felt like this big exposure, and I was like, okay, well, clearly there is stuff that wants to have a conversation with me, and it wants to start by screaming at the top of my lungs.
That's funny. How long do you think that lasted?
Like a drama queen. There was probably 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It was probably a good 10 minutes. I was like, okay. And I got up and just kind of did had a good breath. And I was like, and by the way, this was a day earlier than it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
It was only supposed to be 7 days. So I ended up a day early out there. And I was like, okay, I got a jump start on this whole thing. And that first night I had like a massive anxiety spin out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what's happening. I have so much anxiety. And what was super cool, one thing that was fantastic, it was the beginning of a full moon. So it looked like the sun got dimmed down. Like someone just took a dimmer to the sun. And so I was like, I can see everything out here. It's so weird. And so I just like at 8:30 at night took off with a pack on my back, a 20-pound pack, and started hiking up this really big hill. I wouldn't call it a mountain, but I wouldn't call it a tiny hill. I don't know, something like that. And I was just like, I got to burn energy so I can go to sleep because I'm so freaking anxious. I'm going to like, if I had hair, I'd pull it out. I'll chew my nails completely off before the end of this.
That's funny.
And I got up to the top of this hill. And I remembered friends talking about, well, you know, there's a whole biblical concept of leaving monuments everywhere people went, where they're like, we're going to mark this, and this will be a memory, and this will remind us of what happened here and what God did on the spot. So I'm just just grabbing hold of enormous rocks at the top of that area that looks over this enormous valley. It was definitely one slip and I would have been dead off the side of this cliff. And I'm just throwing these huge rocks up one after another, building this giant pile, trying to burn energy. But also there was something about like that started engaging where I started thinking about my life. It suddenly hit. And I was like, oh, this anxiety that I feel right here and now, this is what I felt. This is the emotion that I felt as a kid, and it's actually loneliness. There was this deep, deep, deep well of loneliness. And I was like, oh, I can feel myself triggered it fully into my childhood. The minute like they all left and I was all alone was the beginning of exposing that deep sense of loneliness.
Which, to be honest, I think is what so many of us are running from.
We're terrified.
Of aloneness.
That's why we
try to avoid aloneness at all costs.
Yeah, that's why we keep hooked into scrolling on screens or jumping from one relationship to the next and things like that. It feels really unnerving.
Busy absolutely.
Nobody wants to be alone. And I think that at the core of all humanity is that lie that we're all been abandoned and
totally
we have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And so it's cool because, I mean, like, not only did I connect to the sense of my abandonment, but And I started guttural crying again, same way. I was like,
You're like, oh, God brought me out here to dehydrate me. He's like, sit in the desert and cry out all your liquids.
The one thing I was committed to was not stopping whatever happened.
What does that mean?
Well, I was like, no matter what emotional experience I have, I am committed to not stopping it. So if I have deep anxiety, I'm going to push into the anxiety and I'm going to let myself have it. I'm going to look directly at it. If I have fear, I'm going to let fear. If I have sadness, it's sadness. If it's anger, it's anger. I do not care. I will allow it to come up and I will face it head on.
God, that's so sexy when you say it like
It's pretty hot.
It is.
You want to rip my clothes off?
If I could do it just with my eyes and not have to move my body at all, then yes. Yes, I do. Okay, so you felt tons of anxiety. You leaned into it.
Yeah.
Recognized it was from your childhood.
Yep. And I leaned into the pain of that. And then what's interesting is I started having it be a process began of me seeing areas that I feel that I have failed and made mistakes at, not in a shameful way. It was an ownership way where I began kind of this ownership process where I started grieving my failures at how I love, whether it's people, you, as in you, Abby.
You haven't told me any of this.
Probably not. I don't know.
Oh. Well, what was that like? What brought up your failures and what did grieving it look like?
Well, one, it was, I don't know, reflectiveness just started hitting. I think one of the things that I was committed to on this process too was like, I want a deeper infusion of a connection to love, right? Like I want love to have its way inside of me. And part of the way that love has its way inside of each of us is that it exposes our fears and our sadnesses and our pains
Our
and
insecurities.
yeah, all of it. It brings it to the surface and says, "Hey, let's deal with it," because it's holding the room that love wants to take up.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, there was a cleansing of the palate, so to say, where I had to begin to go, all right, I want to own all these things in my life, God. I'm really sorry for them. And I didn't feel like there was something that I was doing to try and appease some creator in the sky. It was like an ownership that was liberating for me. And then I think part of it was a dialogue with God as a father saying like, Dad, I need you to meet me in this. Like I hear this song playing in the back of my head that's a promise from you, but I don't know what that looks like.
Totally.
And I need it to be tangible.
Yeah.
And then I went back to have the worst night of my night of sleep of like.
Oh wait, that was all day one.
That was day one.
Wow.
That was day one. I went back, I got in bed, and then friggin' the fires kept going out and I was so cold I could see my breath. I woke up like feeling like someone was
you didn't have extra blankets.
Spraying ice in my face.
Nope.
It's like an ice bucket challenge. And so I had to keep going out in my underwear and grabbing logs of wood
my gosh.
and stoking the fire to keep myself
bring long underwear?
Well, then I threw on clothes and more clothes. And
it was the worst.
The first night was it's a learning experience. It was a learning curve going, okay, how do I need to do this?
Yeah.
I woke up in the morning. I started off with Wim Hof. I just like doing breathing exercises to wake up my body. And I was like, I have to create routine or I'm going to go insane out here. So my first thing was to like get my pills, do my breathing exercises, take my vitamins, brush my teeth, and then like get my gear ready. Yeah. And I hiked the mountain.
I gotta get out of here.
I gotta burn energy.
I gotta do something with my life.
And that's something that I did throughout the entire process is I did a lot of hiking.
Yeah.
And I had two parts of my hiking process where one, I was listening to books on audio and one, it was just dead silence.
Yeah.
And I found
which one was easier?
They neither one was more easy. Each one was therapeutic to its own right.
Yeah.
Because when I was listening to the books, they weren't just like fiction books. They were actually like, they were all spiritual books. They all had to do with faith, you know, Crazy Faith by Michael Todd, Everybody Always by Bob Goff. I love that book. Some books about heaven, It was faith books about supernatural things.
Yep.
Like I wanted like the awe and wonder that was inside of me in my early 20s, especially inside of my faith, because I think this is worth talking about. My early 20s was filled with faith that was, there was a plethora of what felt like supernatural experiences. Miracles and stuff like that. And yet I watched a lot of people inside of that environment feel very crazy.
Totally.
And I was like, you're all out of balance. And that felt like I didn't want to live a life of being out of balance and living like where my head was in the clouds and people being like, what's wrong with that nut job?
Yeah.
But I also wanted things that felt like they transcended normality to be part of. If faith is real, I want it to be real. I don't want it to be an ideology. I don't want it to be just a religion. I want it to be something tangible that's expressed inside of my life. And so for me, there was a level of that where I kind of veered away from it as I went on a practical journey that was vital to my life. Practical understanding of like, how can we make our lives better? Which is a lot of what people have benefited from in the connected life. Yeah. Which is us just practically getting into our souls and being like, oh, this isn't just so magical. Like maybe you're lucky if your life gets better or not. You can do something about it and be empowered. Okay. So anyways, point is, as I was on the trip, I'm like, I want a reignition of something that feels like it transcends practical, but there's a partnership that continues to live out my life with the practical. And not that my practical hasn't had that inside of it at some level, but it was like, oh, I want something fresh to be stirred back inside of me.
Faith and hope and wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All of that.
And I think it's an interesting thing as you get older and you've gone through really hard shit.
Yeah.
It's easier to get more focused on living and practical and surviving.
Well, and you go through disappointments and losses and you go, all right, well,
what do I even believe at this point? I mean, like if you just look at like walking through being so sick with you and the amount of weight that put on your faith. Yeah. You know, the amount of
it taxed
strain,
the hell out of it. Literally.
Constant strain on your faith. And so there's a part of you that's like, I want that part that believes in this. Yeah. To be vibrant and alive.
Yeah. I don't want my childlike wonder to die out of my faith. Yeah. And so that was going back to, I would listen to, pieces of these books and they would inspire me for my silence. And my silence would become my dialogues with God about like, oh, I want to see love manifest in my life in these ways. I want to be a risk taker in these ways like Bob Goff is. I want to challenge what I believe for in the ways that Michael Todd is talking about inside of his book, because I've always been someone that's had wild, crazy faith, I think, myself. Yeah. But then there's been seasons of me being like, oh, okay, I guess this just is what it is. I'm like, no, I believe for wild stuff. And I want to go back to believing for that and watching the divine opportunities that unfold when that happens. Yeah. And so I let a lot of that really percolate throughout the journey. And I think it was vital in me facing things inside of myself, because I started facing the things that was like, oh, I'm disappointed here and I'm scared here and I'm sad here inside of this space. And I want to say that I think a lot of people, like, they're so busy avoiding themselves, but the vital things that they need to address
are inside of themselves. And
it's through the gateway of anxiety and fear and unknownness that we have to pass through it. Yeah. And that's what I was consistently passing through. And it's interesting because as the journey unfolded, I vacillated between, I'm getting the hell out of here, packing my shit up. I'm driving away today. I don't need to stick this out. I got enough out of this already. Totally. And then other points where I was like, absolutely not. I think I might stay here. I have a gun with me that has at least 8 bullets in it that JP gave me, so I can kill 8 things to eat.
That's exactly as long as I'll make it for. That's funny. I'll kill 8 of their pets.
8 pets. And it was interesting because not everything was just emotional. There were days where there was a lot of play involved.
Uh-huh.
Play in the sense of like I was stalking a couple of pigs with my knife and boulders. I was like, I'm going to kill you. And then I'm going to eat you. No pigs were harmed in the making of this trip.
No.
But it was like those ebbs and flows. But one thing that did happen, Barry, my therapist, hi, Barry. Barry, one of the things that he says, like, if you have a chance to and you can, I think it'd be good for you to try and check in once a day with Abby if there's a way that you can make that happen.
Oh, he did say that.
Yeah, he did dialogue with me about that. But that was so far in the back of my head that I forgot about that, honestly. It wasn't until I met with him recently upon returning that he was like, so you listen to me. And I was like, yeah.
My subconscious did.
Yeah, my subconscious did. But the first night, after the first night, then second night,
you hiked up to another place where there was cell service.
5 miles away.
Yep.
I got 5 miles away. And I was able to get turn a generator on and to buy me enough time to get some cell service that would extend my cell service. So I got to have a dialogue with you that night. And I could feel like one of the things, like there was this deep sense of, I love her so much and I want her so badly to be on this trip with me, to be sharing this experience with her.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, that's true. Oh. I'm not just saying that to get into your pants.
You can get into the pants. It's not like you have to earn that still. That's not true. You always got
y'all got to earn it.
Listen, don't make any. I'm making jokes over here. They're not
yourself.
theological
No one's even listening to you.
Statements.
Let us keep moving forward. So, but I did feel this sense of, I really do want to take some time to share this story with her. But at the same time, I was very glad you weren't there.
Yeah. No, I'm glad I wasn't there also.
I would have
babied you. I would have been like, oh, you got a sunburn. Stay inside today.
Yeah, I don't need your coddling.
No, you didn't need
coddling out of here.
That's why you left without me.
I didn't need the comfort of a relationship that could medicate.
Yeah.
Because, and I want to say this, I think that it is vital that we have relationships in our lives. They 100%. Are so necessary. They're one side of the coin to experiencing love and expressing love. They're necessary.
Agreed.
There's another part where they are medicative.
Yes.
And that's a place where inside of our journeys where sometimes we need to put pauses on relationships that feel like they can drown out the noise of our souls. And I think that was such a huge gift of like, I don't have her here for that. And I get to hear what's inside of me. And so as it unfolded, again, a whole lot of hiking, a whole lot of revelation. I came up with a book idea.
Ooh.
I'm not going to talk about it right now, but it felt like a really great book unfolded. Potential. I mean, who knows? It may have just been a way to pass the time. What I did find is there was a lot of, through the process, I had to have purpose.
Yeah.
And the purpose could have been, I have to hike to the top of that mountain. I have to hike to that hunting camp.
Right.
And then I have to hike back. I had to have destinations in mind, or I have to at least do this so that I can make my dinner. But I had to create purpose because I could feel a sense of like, if I didn't have some level of purpose. Now that didn't mean
like you were going crazy,
completely crazy, and like depression could settle into it or something like that.
Yeah.
Now that didn't mean I kept going and going and going.
Yeah.
The idea of purpose allowed the way for me to stop, pause, and relax.
Yeah. Like one of your favorite times you talked about was just sitting at night.
Yeah.
That share about that.
Yeah, there was. I would set up a campfire at night, and there were multiple nights I probably sat for 2 to 3 hours, dead silence, except for the fire. There was you couldn't hear an animal, you couldn't hear the wind, nothing.
Really?
Dead, absolute silence.
Wow.
And again, at first, that felt unnerving the first night and kind of a little bit into the second night. And then all of a sudden, the silence turned into like what felt like being swaddled as a baby. And you're like, oh, there is nothing here to take from me, whether it be in distraction, relationally. It just
There's nothing
is.
you need to do.
There's nothing I need to do.
You don't need to go do your bills. You don't need to make sure that the car's washed. You don't have to.
Yeah, I don't have any concerns. And concerns are a gift to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're part of our purpose. They're part of engaging life and whatever. But to have the stillness for moments of time like that,
Mm-hmm.
I found myself settling in. And those were the moments where I was like, I never want to leave here.
Right.
They're going to have to like drag me out of
Pry me out of this scenario. Mm-hmm.
So kind of fast forward. There was one evening as I was at Hendry's camp.
Mm-hmm.
Which by the way, did I say it didn't have a dirt floor? It didn't have a dirt floor like I was told that it did. Which was a surprise. I was like, oh crap, this is great. This is hotel accommodations.
So nice.
I was prepared for just a dirt floor, which by the way, though, it was so much dust in there. I woke up every morning with a bloody nose because my nose was so dry. Yeah. And I just blow out like dirt, especially with running the wood fire stoves all night.
It was dry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was the desert already, which was dry.
Yeah, totally. But midway into the trip, all of a sudden I wake up from a nap. I was like, I need to, make dinner. I go out to my cooler and most of my ice had melted.
Ugh.
And I was like, I can't stay here with spoiled food. I'm going to die of starvation.
Totally.
Like, I need food. And I did have access to the hunting camp 5 miles away.
Yeah.
If I wanted to go set up in there, which again was told to me that it was more of like a 5-star hotel, which it was not that.
Totally.
But it was much cozier.
It was cozier.
It had insulation.
Yes.
And it had some seats to sit in.
And running water. Did they both have running water?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Henry's had kind of running water.
Okay.
I could turn on. It definitely would have probably killed me and given me scabies or something if I drank it. But all of a sudden I looked at the clouds and I had like this thing hit me really hard. And it was, the weather's about to take a major change. You need to hurry up and get out of here. Cause I contemplated like, I'll wait out in the morning.
Totally.
I'm just a little bit of water in there. I'll keep it fine.
Yeah.
And so I went nuts, gathering everything up as fast as I could. And I'm hauling ass out of there.
Did you have to take multiple trips or did you get everything like on your back?
No, I had my truck.
Oh, you had your truck. Okay.
The truck got left there. So I went barreling out of there with the truck.
Yeah.
Got set up in the new spot. And as soon as I got set up, it's late. It was like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And all of a sudden I start hearing, and it was hail. Hail hits, sleet hits, temperature massively drops outside. Gosh. There's no way I would have survived Henry's camp. I was like, no way. This was not going to happen. And it was
also just the amount of sleep in an all tin building, hearing the hail.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah. And the wind
so loud.
was going nuts.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, I do hear God. I do have a good intuition.
I felt this.
I felt it.
And then the next day.
The next day it snowed.
It did?
It got colder.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I actually had to drive all the way back to the main ranch, which is about an hour drive down, and ran into one of the ranch hands for a quick second. I was trying to get gasoline so I could actually fire up the generator.
Yeah.
So I could talk to you. And he's like a rough dude that goes out and like lives on his own and likes living out in the middle of nowhere type thing. And he goes, I was getting concerned for you. And he was like, he thought I was a city boy. And then we found out I was from Montana. He was like, okay, less concerned, but still, I would have been hauling my ass out of that place up there with what was going on. And I'm used to that type of stuff. So he's like, I'm glad you got out. So that was a great confirmation that I wasn't.
Made a good choice.
Wasn't being a weenie getting out of there. That was a good choice. So as it unfolds, fast forward, I was moving into the second to the last day. And I had the biggest meltdown I've had in 2 years. Which
I think is partially my fault.
Maybe 3.
I think, can I mention like what was going on for me during this? So I was like, oh my gosh, this is about to be this magical trip for Justin, and I'll probably have like really great time by myself over here, and it'll probably be inspirational for both of us. And like, just because I kind of feel like, oh, if you're having an invitation to have a deep soul encounter, I'm probably also.
Yeah.
You can't visualize what you think a deep soul encounter means. Because it's never accurate for me. But so what I wasn't expecting is when you left, my body has been really rough since Mexico.
Yeah.
So it's been 2 months of that, but it just exploded. I finally quit the treatment that I did in Mexico. To be on the treatment, I had to be off all of the medication that I'd been on for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And so when I got off all that medication, it threw my body into unbalance and everything got out of control. And I was like trying really hard to not ruin the treatment. And so it was like, if I go back on my medication, it ruins the treatment. But if my symptoms get bad, it ruins the treatment. So it was kind of like
It was catch-22.
It was catch-22. I was trying to figure it out. So finally I decided I'm quitting the treatment. I'm going back on all the medication that I was on. And when I go back on that medication, none of it works.
Yeah.
None of it even affects it anymore. So suddenly I'm having every infection, every symptom, everything happen all at once while Justin is gone. And every day is worse than the day before.
It was very familiar to when you were at the peak of like, oh, you might die.
Yeah, it was. Yep. Mm-hmm. And so like instantly within a week, I was back to, now obviously not as bad as I was, but definitely like a lot of ways was bad like I was when we went to Spain, and it changed my life. So I was having a few emotions about that. Like I don't cry very much from pain. Typically I cry for a lot of reasons, mostly hormonal, but not from pain. But I cried because I was in so much physical pain that week.
Yeah.
Multiple days.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely got word
And so
of
I was
that
actually
in our-
pretty sad that you were calling me, because I was like, I can't fake this. You're going to ask me how I am. I can't tell you I'm fine.
Yeah.
And so I felt sad about that.
Which I think it was good, though. It was actually a necessary part of my trip.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been what I would have chosen, but yeah.
But again, that's like part of surrendering to stuff, is it's not how we think it should go or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I heard that, and I think it probably, yes, I mean, started me down a train of like thinking and processing. And I went out for another like 8-mile hike or something like that. And I went into a fit of rage. And that was being directed to the spaces of my soul reserved for God and my faith.
Yeah.
And I was down to like, F this, I'm becoming an atheist. This is all pointless. None of this is real.
Yeah.
But I reconciled back a couple of years ago. You know, I was like,
Yeah.
you know, I really settled in my soul. Papa is a really good dad. There's a God that's really involved, regardless of the outcome of Abby's situation. If she dies, he's still a really good dad.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something that I mind tricked myself into. It's something that really settled in my heart. And I've been living out of that space, whether it's with you or anything else that doesn't go well. I'm like, yeah, well, this isn't a result of my creator not being involved in my story.
Yeah,
but
you laid accusation down.
Yeah, I laid my right to be accusatory towards God down completely. Yeah. And I found myself suddenly like it was pointed in every direction. And I fumed for probably 6 to 7 hours. And I was sitting at the outside grill cooking food, being very verbally aggressive, and I was loud. I mean, there's no one for miles around, so
nice.
I am yelling at the top of my lungs. I'm saying whatever I would need to say to get out of me. And again, my cognitive part of my brain, stepping back from the moment, is like, that's interesting. It looks like I really need to get that out, huh?
Like, wow.
Huh.
Ooh.
All right. Well, I'm going to let that be unloaded. And I'm just like chain smoking my tobacco pipe and just like, I don't care. And smashing Dr. Pepper.
Well, I only have 2 vices and I'll use them both.
And then I went to bed for the night. So the next day, so that was the second to last day. Then the last day that I have there, I go out on a drive, way out again, get out of the truck, and I start walking, and it starts spinning in my head, like going back to originally when you got really sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking about the weight of that. And I had processed a lot of grief through it. I felt very connected to it. I cried with people all the time, and called mentors in my life, and, expressed myself. I didn't lock it down. But I really, somehow the review of it came up in my soul. And I fell on my face in the middle of dirt and just like wailed for probably 45 minutes as I was feeling the weight of watching you go through what you went through, me feeling out of control, me trying to carry the business, the podcast, all the other things, the trying to believe that things were going to change, trying to make the right decisions throughout all of it. I was like, it was suddenly the ache of that man during that season, all conglomerate. And I could tell that the anger the day before was the protector to this deeper layer that's been down there that needed to actually come up and needed the space for it. Didn't have it.
The sadness and the grief.
Didn't have the right timing or the right space to get to the depth of it.
Yeah.
And so I found myself inside of that. Again, my cognitive self was like, wow, there's a lot in there for him. I'm going to let this happen. And then it felt like the sense of that purging was done.
Like it was complete.
Complete for that time. I don't know. There might be more, right? But it felt complete for what was necessary in that space. And I suddenly rose up and I stood up and I'm looking around, and then the fight inside of me kicked in. Not the fight with God, the fight with life.
The fight for life.
For life. The strength, the tenacity, all of that, the courage and confidence to begin to say, nope, this is what's going to shift. Mm-hmm. And I began to come back into that alignment with my confident self, even in my early 20s, where I'd be like, no, and this is what's going to happen, and this is how my life's going to change, and this is what I'm going to experience. And I'd watch things be altered and follow that. And I began to make those types of expressive declarations out loud and aim everything that I had inside of me. Now, the day before was a place of powerlessness. Mm-hmm. And it was a place of pain and powerlessness.
The ache of powerlessness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this was from a place of like, no, and it wasn't just like, hey, look at me, I'm bipolar swinging on this situation.
Totally.
It was, I could see the phases, and I could logically see and feel the phases out of what was happening to get me to this spot. And so I locked into that, and that's where something shifted. That's where something, and I was like, I don't know what this means for me.
Totally. But
I feel a shift. It's not just a today in this moment shift. It's I feel a life shift that's taking over inside of me. Mm-hmm. And I just felt a well of emotions hit me as I said that, which
right now.
Yeah. It was like, I almost just felt like a burst of tears come out. And so feels like truth to my soul, maybe. And what was interesting was the day driving out. So we're almost wrapping this up. So the next day as I'm driving out, I'm listening to The Supernatural Life of William Branham. Mm-hmm. It's a book series that I've read before in the past. For those of you who don't know who he is, just the summation is he was a healing revivalist in 1946, 47, 48. Things started happening in his life. He grew up in poverty, and he started having supernatural experiences with God in his own personal journey that he didn't understand. He didn't know what it was, but he was surrendered in his own process. And he started something that blazed across America. It inspired some of the greatest healing revivalists that came out of being part of
Absolutely.
his revival meetings, where he had an encounter. The interesting thing was he had an encounter while he was in the wilderness.
Yeah.
Like went away to a cave or somewhere or a shack himself and had an encounter with an angel that he saw face to face. And part of his story was always like people challenging me, like, you're crazy. He's like, I don't know. I just see these things happen. I'm just being honest. It was very innocent in his early 20s and stuff. And he has this experience with an angel, and it says, if you'll be sincere and you'll get people to believe, God will heal people. And there was a lot more to it, but I'm listening to this book on audio. And as I start hearing one miracle after another, and I start remembering all the miracles I saw in my early 20s as I'd be part of healing revival movements and just be like, oh I literally just saw that person's leg grow. My brain says I don't get this, but I am watching it with my eyes, seeing the healings happen, as someone who is completely deaf is freaking out right now because they can hear out of that ear.
Totally.
And I found myself as I was driving out of there, pulling over and weeping, undone. But and it wasn't sadness. It was the weeping of like, this is available. Like the supernatural life of God is available in my life. It didn't just die. It's been part of my DNA. There's something that God wants to do inside of my world. This inspires me. And I was like driving out of there being like, I want the world to see the power, the supernatural power of heaven. That's undeniable. Like my faith doesn't change. Like there's been many times where I've been like, F it, I'm done. I want to walk away, but I'm like, but I can't deny what my natural mind observed.
Yeah.
And and what that produced in people's life and how that changed them. And so there was this thing like for 2 hours, I sob cried. And
Were you at the side of the road for 2 hours or while you were driving for 2 hours?
I'd drive, I'd pull. I mean, like I was driving
back and forth, driving and pulling
and
over.
I'd pull over because I could barely drive and I could barely function. And then I would just drive again. And I got into town and to the hotel that I was staying at, and I just sat there settled, and I was like, okay, I don't know what all this week means. I don't have some nice tidy bow on it that says this is the next steps.
Totally.
Or this is now what it's going to be like. I just feel stirred. Yeah. And I feel like the purging of what was necessary to be purged. And I feel a reconnection to my own heart. Like even since I've been back, the couple of times I caught myself just scrolling on my phone, like on Instagram or something. I was like, yuck, I hate this. Yuck. I could feel a visceral reaction inside of myself because I'm like, I don't like that. It doesn't feel filling. I really just want like more of connection to myself and to whatever this is. And not that I've been disconnected from myself. Sorry, but connection. But there's more of a very, a deeper awareness that I got tapped into. And so with that said, I think I'm excited, and I'm inquisitive into this year. Yeah. Where I'm like, okay, what does that mean that I started out? I mean, I'm going to be 40 this year. Yeah. That feels like a significant age that I'm going to hit. And it feels like, all right, there are promises that are percolating. Percolating promises that I don't have language for. Yeah. And I'm just going to continue to do what I did on the trip, which is be present with whatever unfolds as it unfolds. Yeah. But since I've been back, every morning I get up and I'm hiking and I'm listening to things on Audible, and I'm connecting into that space, and I feel like energy. I feel momentum.
I love that.
And it's not necessarily towards just building something or, creating. It's just, I feel a soul momentum.
Oh, that's awesome.
So.
Yeah, I felt really, really proud of you. It was a very different experience. It was really fun getting to talk to you every single day. We kept it short. It was like 5 minutes to like between 5 and 15 minutes probably every day.
Just quick check-in so you knew I wasn't eaten by a bear.
Yeah, that was nice.
And a quick update of like, and this is one thing that came up inside of me.
I know. Yeah, it wasn't everything, but there was the little glimpses that you gave me. But I felt like you were really brave. You leaned into emotions. You didn't run from them. You found that comforting place. I think so many of us forget that the way to comfort is through pain. You can't avoid pain and get comfort.
No.
But so we use all kinds of things to medicate our souls, but our souls actually need comfort. But you cannot get comfort if you avoid your pain. And
because the pain is the thing that needs comforting. So you have to go walk up to it and be like, let me give you comfort by being with you.
Yes. Yeah. So I felt really, really proud of you. And I just don't ever think that there's an experience that we have like a week like this where we can know what it did in us.
No.
Right away. I mean, like, we'll probably be looking back and there'll probably be like a million things that were like, oh yeah, this thing randomly changed in our life after this trip. Or, oh, I started seeing or feeling this way after. And then you'll like randomly trace it back. But it's like any trip that changes us. Typically it's these little hints and whispers that all of a sudden at some point creates something that is a tangible picture we can see.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this feels pretty much like what it's like. And I felt proud of you for your honesty and your perseverance. You don't give up.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
Nope. That's one thing that I thought about it is I was just grind up a mountainside and I was like, I refuse to tap out. Mm-hmm. Whether it's climbing this mountain or whether it's whatever I have to face internally. That's one of the things I actually am most grateful for that feels like I've either developed or is wired into me or a little of both is that thing of perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
There's something in me that just is like, I will not tap out.
Yep.
So with that said, just a quick heads up, Living Fully Alive 2022, our once a year round.
Yeah. I think we're only doing it once a year this year.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a couple weeks out. We only got a couple more weeks left. So if that's something that you want to participate in, you've heard about it, most likely, if you've been listening at any level, anytime with us, jump onto Justin and Abby, that's abi.com, and check out Living Fully Alive under our courses page. And we're really excited. I've been getting messages from people who are signing up for it, and they're like, oh my God, I can't wait.
Yeah,
Wow, just going to cough right in their faces, huh? Just take some cough.
Oh my gosh. I was going to hope you were going to edit that out.
No.
I just met with all of the people who are going to be running things, and we've added extra things. We keep adding things. We're doing the immersion program now, and now we also have After Heart Sings. We have more. We have just we're doing so much more connection based stuff every year.
Yeah.
The program gets so much better, improves so much. So this year the immersion program is going to be so great. And, and the course is really amazing. I was going through the reviews and honestly just cried about like how many people's families, lives, friendships, marriages have transformed radically because of this.
And I think one of the things that's most impactful for me is seeing whole families. Like maybe children will go through it and then they'll be like, hey, I want to go through it with you, mom, dad, siblings. And we keep seeing like whole families going through it and getting on the same page with same language and then discovering something that they never knew about their parents, about their kids. And they're like, we didn't know this about each other, but now we do. And we get to walk with each other in the process. And so, yeah, that's really great. That'll be March 2nd is when I think the day that it actually begins. And hurry up and get in there and sign up now. With that said, if you got anything out of this, rate, review, subscribe, and share it. Any last thing, Abs? Nope. Let's go get food. I'm hungry.
Yum, 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 yum.
I want to eat.
I liked hearing your story.
Did you?
Yeah.
There's probably stuff that I haven't told you about it still.
There is.
I got to figure out what it is.
I have a list.
All right, everybody.
Like you guys.
Bye.